Hi. People often ask me, why did you stay in Russia this long? And honestly, I've asked myself the same thing, especially during the worst of times.
Wow, those are the Russian people?
There were times I could have packed up and left. Changing laws, financial crashes, the daily headache of not speaking great Russian. But I didn't leave. And today, I want to tell you why. Now, when I first came to Russia, I didn't plan to stay forever. I came here because of a girl who later became my wife. Well, back in the early 2000s, if you were a foreign guy in Russia, you were either here for a girl or you were a missionary on a missionary trip. Today, well, the reasons people come are a lot more diverse. I expected to stay maybe 9 months to a year, then head back to America with my new wife. And why 9 months to a year? Because when I left my job, friends, family, and home, everyone back in the States was very confident I wouldn't make it over here. We had our own vision of what it was like in Russia. They expected I'd be back fairly quickly with my tail between my legs. But I'm many things, but loser isn't one of them. So my plan was stay a year, prove I could do it, and if I came back and if somebody commented on how little time I spent here, I'd ask, and how long did you last in Russia? Just what I thought. But life had other plans. I met great people. I settled into a routine. My wife helped me navigate everything. The visa process was brutal, but because she was Russian, I was eligible for permanent residency. Kind of like a Russian green card. Well, it took dozens of documents, office visits, lawyers, doctors, but just over a year after arriving, I had my permanent residence permit. Funny thing is, I couldn't leave the country during that time. And by the time I could, I'd already been in Russia for over a year. And after all that effort, I wasn't going to just leave. Russia didn't feel exotic anymore. It just felt normal. Difficult at times, but it was my new normal. I was learning constantly, not just a language, but how to live under a whole different system, how to register documents, how to dress for minus 40-degree winter days. Something you should know, that's the one temperature where Fahrenheit and Celsius are the same. And it's cold as hell. Now, it wasn't glamorous, but it was real. And real started to feel a lot like home. There were plenty of times leaving would have made sense. 2008, when the ruble collapsed. 2014, when sanctions hit. Every time someone from home said, "Come back before it gets worse." My wife and I had those talks. Should we go? Would life be easier somewhere else? But she always said the same thing. As long as we're together, the where doesn't really matter. I hit the jackpot with her. And truthfully, the idea of starting from zero again somewhere else wasn't too appealing to either of us. And also, for every crisis, there was something that grounded me here. Our daughter's first steps. A friend showing up with a bottle of vodka during a snowstorm. The quiet beauty of a spring in the Russian countryside. And the vast expanse of a light blue Russian sky. Just beautiful. I spent the world's COVID lockdown right here in Russia. And you know what? I was grateful. Yes, the rules were strict, but in true Russian fashion, you bent them just enough to suit your situation, and you did not feel as beaten down as those who lived under COVID in the West. Funny quick story, we were building a garage at that point, having a garage built. So we had a crew of people, and all these guys, they wanted to work because they needed the money. Nobody was going to pay them to stay home. So they would come here and work. And we had somebody in the neighborhood, the first person in the neighborhood, if a police car drove in, would warn everyone else, and people would kind of scatter until they left again. And they continue doing their work. I mean, hell, they had to earn money. They had mouths to feed, families to support. So, like I said, it was done in the Russian manner. Sure, there were headaches. Residency laws changed. Banking rules changed. Getting a driver's license felt like a Greek tragedy, especially with my weak Russian. But there was progress, too. New metro stations, cleaner parks, more job opportunities, better health care, more good coffee shops, more big supermarkets, more improved roads, just more options. Every time it got tough, I'd ask myself, do I really want to leave? And the truth was, no, I didn't. I was part of a community now, and leaving would feel like quitting. And weirdly, I cared more about not looking like a quitter here even than I did back in the States. You don't stay in a place for 24 years without building a life. I married here. We raised 2 amazing daughters here. I learned the unwritten rules. I learned how to navigate bureaucracy without losing my mind, how to survive a 9-month winter without punching someone. I'm not here because I have to be. I'm here because, for all its flaws, this place became my home. It snuck up on me, slowly, stubbornly, but undeniably, Russia became my place. So why didn't I leave Russia when I had the chance? I stayed because the bigger adventure was staying. And yeah, I guess I showed my friends I could make it after all. About 150 years ago, a man named Frederick Wallace left Scotland and moved to America. Well, that was after a short sojourn in Australia. Now, he was my ancestor. I don't know much about him, but clearly he was an adventurer and a bit mysterious. In other words, going from the British Isles and kind of moving into Australia for a few years, then moving on. Well, Australia was a penal colony. I mean, maybe he was a prisoner. I don't know. He was mysterious. Hundreds of people in the U.S. can trace their roots back to him, including me, including my mother. My mother was a Wallace, and I guess it fell to me to start another branch of the family tree, this time in Russia. Maybe 150 years from now, my descendants will find these videos and understand exactly why I came here and why I stayed. I think that's a cool thought, don't you think? If you've ever stayed somewhere longer than you planned, a place, a job, a relationship, tell me your story in the comments down below. Well, thanks for watching. Until next time, Paka.